Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. With me in the studio, as always, is Eric Morin.
Hold on. Last week I got the wonderful Eric Morin. What
The
happened to
wonderful.
that? Did I do something wrong? I don't have wonderful anymore.
I'm trying to keep people on their toes over here.
We're like going to have like 1980s wrestler names before you know.
The fabulous Eric J. Morin. Brought to you by Tower Leadership.
The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
Oh, dude, that's so good. So before we got on the podcast, me and you were just talking a little bit about what we wanted to discuss for today's podcast, and I think you hit the nail on the head. And I want you to explain a little bit about, yesterday, what you were doing, what you uncovered, because I think it's super important for the people, especially some of the people that are listening to this podcast, because they fall into this group. And I think you uncovered something crucial when you were working with some clients yesterday, and then you started doing a deep dive analysis and just kind of reflecting on the year. And I want you to talk a little bit about what you found. I know we have a lot of listeners on this podcast, and some of our most successful clients are actually listening in right now, and they probably fall into this category. But I want you to kind of explain some of the discoveries. I know you always like to do case studies, so I think it'll be beneficial for the audience to hear.
Well, I think that it's interesting that we have, even our clients, who knows, I might say something that they were like, it's good, Eric. So I don't know, a lot of listeners. I think that I was going through yesterday because we came out of the leadership retreat, and, still, I mean, we're weeks away and people are still saying powerful things about how it affects their life and their team and all those types of things. And I love that. But I started really looking at it. And I started paying attention to, I went through lists of clients. I literally had them list, all the clients. And I went down with the ones that were really, really, really successful. And I'm talking top 10%, right? And then maybe the 10% after that. And then all the way down to, the people who think that ultimately they can cut a check, not show up to the gym and get results, right? So I started going through that list, and as I started going through it, I really just asked, well, there's actually two sides of it. One, I said, do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity? And two, I wrote down, are they good people? Now, I'm not talking about good people in the eyes of their family or good people in the eyes of God. I really mean, do they care about impact? Do they care about their team? Do they care about their team's future? Are they really just good people? Like people you'd want to spend time with. If you said, this is somebody I'd want to go have a beer with, this is the person I would want to go have a beer with. This is somebody who would take time to teach me something. This is somebody that literally, like you can see in their eyes, they care about their team. They care about the results of the team. They want to do well. Interestingly enough, they want to do well. They want to be successful. And matter of fact, most of these people are the high net worth individuals, right? Doing really well, multi-location. And it's interesting that the correlation between the top 10% of the people who are the people who care the most. And I thought that isn't that interesting that the top 10%, when we go back and, and you go back to earlier episodes of the Dental Wealth Podcast, really explaining my philosophy. And the philosophy is that you focus on impact first. Whose life can I impact? Wake up today. How can I change someone's lives? How can I help somebody? How can I serve them? How can I do all these things? And that's where you get excited about. And then what happens is if we come from that standpoint, what happens is people will rally around us. We take care of patients, we get results, all those types of things. People stay long-term. But on the other side of this whole equation, the other side is this idea of, well, I was listening to this one podcast, this dental podcast, and they said that, my team, forget them. And, I should, And it's all about me, my money, my money, my money, my money, my money, my wealth, my money, my wealth. I mean, you go listen to, so many podcasts, and I'm not just talking about dental, even outside of dental, you go back and the vast majority of the world is telling you just, basically it's all about money. And so I believe that the people that are struggling the most are the ones who have made it all about money. That the people who absolutely are the most successful care about people.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, it's funny how you say that. And I like to when I start looking at some of the clients too, they built themselves up to get to that point to where they can solely focus on taking care of their team. So I think a lot of times people try to focus on the business after the fact too. And I think that ultimately hurts them. I think it's like we always say, you know, the people that are all in are the ones that get the most results. So when someone is both caring about the team, but does focus on the business, just like you said, there's a lot of times where people are just kind of like hoping a magic pill fixes them rather than let's focus on the business. And then when we see the businesses make the biggest jumps is when they truly focus all their energy on taking care of their team and taking care of patients. And how do we make sure we go impact the greater community?
But everyone says that they take care of patients, right? And so that's where so I'll give you an example. I had a conversation with a doctor, and he was bringing in a CEO. He's a large, I mean, he's got over 100 employees. And so, we were talking about a COO, and he said, well, this is how much this guy wants to get paid. But ultimately, if he really can provide value, I'm going to pay him this much. Right now, he didn't have to. The guy said, hey, look, I mean, all I want is X amount. And this guy said, well, if he provides more value, I'm going to pay him more. So I was like, isn't that interesting that he has 100 employees? How in the world does he have 100 employees? Why do you think he has 100 employees? Because now this is a person who's highly, high net worth, does extremely well. And I found it interesting. And the more I've spoken to this person, the more they're like, yeah, I want to take care of this person. I want to take care of that person. I want to make sure that they're focused. And I was taken back by that because, when we say the word impact, I think that feels like some kind of existential, this impact where it's like, I think that means delivering food to the homeless. Right. And I think that we think that, or going to the hospital and, it's not. Impact is a daily fight. It's a daily desire to serve people. Now, here's the interesting part. It goes both ways, right? Those people should be also trying to serve you. And that you have to find people who are willing to serve you. I mean, you also have to be willing to be served. And what I mean by that is we all serve each other. We're really here to help each other. I will tell you, I'm so blessed, by people on this team who reach out to me and say, how are you doing? That always catches me off guard though. When someone says like, how are you doing? How's it going? They're like, Eric, how are you doing? And I always get that caught off guard, but that means, they care about me, and I care about them. And I brought up one of the people that are struggling, and I said, they're like, we just can't find any good people.
Yeah.
And I said, I would never work for this person. And they're, they want a magic pill. The truth is that, and the advice is already there, by the way, which is go work on you. Go work on you. To get better people, you just have to work on yourself. And it's like, well, I don't want to hear that. I want to know that there's a magic pill that I can take. No, you have to actually work on yourself. You have to work on your own beliefs, your own paradigm, your own story. We all have a story in our head. If your story in your head is that the people are there just to purely serve you, and that it's all about you and your wealth and your money, and you're the end all be all, and your ego's in the way, well, then why would anybody want to serve you?
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people out there that, like you said, are looking for that magic pill. The ones that I find are more like the ones that I have the best conversations with. They're the ones that are not looking for the easy way out. They're the ones that are like, all right, so what all does this take? And I am very honest when I have phone calls with people and I say, this isn't your, take a magic pill and you immediately grow and your team's amazing and you start hiring and attracting people. No, it's a cumulative effort. Like you have to do all things. You have to be ambient. You have to be everywhere. You have to do a lot of different things with your business, with your community. You have to do everything. And those are the ones. Yes, those are the ones that always, when we look back at it and we say, these are the ones that are most successful. It's because they were looking for a challenge. They were looking for something that was going to make them get out of bed and say, all right, I want to do this, rather than, it's just going to be another easy day. No, what can I do to grow this practice? What can I do to help my team? How can I, create generational wealth? What do I need to do?
Our high net worth group, that I really put together, I'm trying to think of any of them are out of shape. I don't think any of them are out of shape. I think they're all pretty ripped, actually. Now I'm trying to think about it. I think they're all in like great shape, but one of them just hiked like some crazy mountain or something. And I got the pictures. Isn't it interesting that the most successful clients that we work with are hiking mountains, riding bikes to school, to work, that are focusing on their fitness? Because there is no single lack, right? Everything affects everything else. If you got a shitty diet, you probably have a shitty health plan, which means you probably have a shitty attitude, which means you're going to show up with that. You're going to dump all over everybody else. And then they're going to be unhappy. And then they're going to end up leaving. And then we had a doctor, there's a doc. I mean, I've had this happen so many times. 2 doctors in one town, one's thriving, the other goes, there's no good people in this town. And so to have more, we simply become more. And I've said that before, but it's like, I want you to hear me in it. This is a message that it's like everyone needs to hear it. And I don't care where you're at. If you check mark this and go, oh, I've already become more. Okay. Ego, right? Come on, stop. We can always become more. We can always get better. Every day is a chance to grow and to become more and to thrive. And so when we go back to our businesses, the idea of tower leadership is still this idea of, becoming a leader, right, is the most important thing you can do. Mm-hmm. And it's where you got to put the most of your efforts. If you want to grow your dental organization, you have to grow yourself as a leader. That's the number one place to start. Is you want to grow a bigger company, grow you. That's what has to happen ultimately to grow any organization, is to simply grow yourself. And you have to ask yourself, what am I doing to grow myself? And you got to like be disciplined about it, whether you set an hour aside a day, or whatever it ends up being. It's like, it's the same thing where, look, I would argue that the people that are struggling the most probably have unhealthy habits when it comes to food and alcohol and discipline and their marriage and everything else. And so,
you talk about it in your book. 10% of your earnings should go to self-investment.
Oh my gosh. So let's just stop there for a moment. Like, if you have not read Financial Evolution, you need to read it. Look, it's case studies and it's spending a lot of time, but I think
it's important that you read this book as we end the year, because you can kind of see how you fell into one of the phases by the end of this year. And it almost gives you a mental goal and say, all right, I've been in the 3rd phase, I've been in that phase this whole time, risk management, boom. What do I need to get to the next one? And you start climbing this ladder. And I think that's a great way for you just to mentally prepare yourself. And as we talk about reflection on this year, what our most successful clients were doing, I think this is a great opportunity for you guys to do that with yourself and say, where did I fall on the spectrum? Eric's done thousands of these one-on-ones with these clients, and he found that everyone falls into this spectrum of these 5 phases. And which one are you in? Pinpoint that and figure out how you can get to the next one.
Yeah, I think you've got to look at it and say, like, how do I want to go backwards. The 10%, if you make $500,000, right, you put $50,000 a year. It's interesting when I tell a client, for instance, pay $1,000 a month to a personal trainer. They're like, $1,000 a month. You guys spend that on crap anyhow. I was telling my friend the other day, I had a good friend come in town from the military, and he said, how much does your personal trainer cost? I said, probably about $10,000 a year. And he said to me, he was like, 10,000. I said, let me ask you a question. If you could like wake up 12 months from now and be ripped, in shape, feeling good, the body you want, the pants size or whatever it is, and all you had to do is cut a check for $10,000 and instantly it would be there, would you do it? And he was like, oh yeah, I beg, borrow, and steal. I'm like, exactly. Like, it's what you prioritize, right? And so it's like, how much are you putting into? Sometimes I get this every now and then when I'm like, well, when I was talking to my coach and people are like, you have a coach? I'm like, well, of course I do. I have multiple coaches, both in fitness and life and business. And of course I do. And people are sometimes taken back by that. Like, I don't have all the answers. I have a lot of answers, and I hope I have more answers every day, because I'm going to constantly continue to grow and to improve. And there's not a damn day that walks by where I don't go, how do I get better? How do I learn? How do I get, how do I grow? This isn't about it's not about me personally. It's about you, and saying, and this is really, I want to bring it back to your dental organization. If you want to grow your dental organization, how much are you willing to commit on yourself in 2022?
Yep.
Look, I'm willing to listen to a podcast. It's going to take more than to listen to a podcast. You have to take massive action. We just put the sign upstairs, Matthew. I don't know if you've seen it because it's not in Texas, but maybe we get one out.
Maybe I need one for Texas.
Maybe we need one in Texas. So,
and I think I gotta
say what the sign says. I gotta say what the sign says.
Go say what the sign says.
All right. 10 times. It takes 10 times the activity you think it'll take. It's so flipping important for you to understand that it takes 10 times the activity. That's statistical. That you think it's like the same sales guy that walks into the next year and goes, I say sales guy, let's just bring it back to dentistry. It's this person who goes, well, this year I did 2 million. Next year I want to do 2.5. How are you going to do that? Work harder. It probably won't get you there. Yeah. So what are you going to do in the next 2022 to ultimately allow yourself to grow, attract, and expand? And it's going to take 10 times the activity. What does 10 times the activity actually look like? By the way, it's not 10 times the number of implants. You can only work so hard. Yeah.
And I think I was laughing during the middle of that because I just realized a correlation. When someone calls to our leadership, as we know, they call in and I have a conversation with them. I would say probably more than half of the time people are calling in and I ask them a simple question, when's the last time you've used, a consultant or had a coach, or when's the last time you looked at business development? And they're saying, well, I used to do that about 3 years ago. Then I took a break. And I was like, well, how's your business been doing? We've been about steady and we're just looking for the next step. And isn't that interesting that happens that way? When you stop investing in yourself and your business, things don't go the way you plan them to, and I think we run into it all the time, is sometimes clients think they know more than they know. And sometimes you just need that person that's going to push you, that's going to help guide you along the way. And I think that's what separates some of our clients, is they're looking for that. And that's why clients stay with us for, a numerous amount of years, is because they always want that person. They know we're that person that can help them in any situation that they're having.
Well, we've actually started watching out for consultant hoppers, right? When someone comes to me, look,
it's a red flag.
By all means, of course, I think our company does it better, but to say that you were with 5 consultants and none of them got you the results you're looking for, oftentimes there's this common denominator and it happens to be you. And I don't want the last consultant's problems. And it's like, well, Eric, but your system's different. Look, but if 5 people couldn't get you to take action, you're going to tell me they all their organizations suck? I don't think so. I'm not going to, I just don't believe that to be true. I believe that that there might be a common denominator in there. Now, I'm okay with someone who says, look, I take a little bit from everybody. I like to learn different philosophies and that's great. But if someone just says, it just didn't work, right? I was with this company, it just didn't work. I was with 5 companies and they just didn't work. I'm like, oh, we definitely, can we steer clear of you? And I say that because it's probably you. See, that's the problem. Now, if you want to go to work on you, that's one thing. I'm all about going to work on you, but you got to understand that you're the problem. Now, going back to impact, say, well, how do I work on me? Well, I would start first with just saying, whose life do I want to change? It's not about accumulation. I will have accumulation if I focus on other people. I will have the life I want if I help other people. I will have cars and houses and boats if I help other people. So in the next year, who is it that you want to serve and help? How will you grow yourself? And how will you, what is your massive action plan to get there? Because if you think, by the way, this is the whole
and your how can't just be work harder.
It cannot be,
emphasized.
I was listening to Dan Sullivan last week again, talk about, it's 10 times, not 2 times. 10 times is easier than 2 times, because 2 times only just takes working harder. 10 times takes massive action. 10 times you'd have to get out of the dental chair to go 10 times, right? You'd have to get capital to go 10 times. You'd have to maybe even get strategic partnerships to go 10 times. 10 times is easier though, because you get out of the dental chair, you start to create a life of scalability, you start to create, right? So when we think about this, it's easier to go 10 times than 2 times. 2 times is just work. I mean, you just got to work twice as hard. That stinks. Yeah. And So we have to go back and focus on, hey, look, in 2022, what will I do to grow me? What will I do to become better for myself? What am I going to do to ultimately be the person that I deserve to be for my family, for my you know, for my team, for the future? And there is, today's the day, today is the day. It's not tomorrow, it's today. And here's the thing about it is like, so I say personal trainer, I'll guarantee you there's thousands of people listening to this podcast. I guarantee you, of thousands of people listening to this podcast, one person, one will probably go get a personal trainer next year. One. And the rest of them will fail like everybody else, because here's what they're going to say. You don't understand. I'm going to start working out 5 days a week starting in the new year. I'm like, okay,
that's like personal trainer, maybe half of the people will do it for the first month and then they'll stop doing it.
That's right. By the way, just so you guys know, I'm just as fallible. Like I had my trainer for a year, this trainer for last year, and then I stopped for a little while. I looked back at a picture of like right before I quit him, and then I looked at it like I was like, son of a gun. Like, it's like, look, I went back to him because I'm like, listen, it's a process that I can pay for that works, and it works. Now, you might say, well, Eric, I know how to do the exercises. It's way more about it. It's the accountability. It's having to pay somebody. It's having to show up. It's having to be there. Right. And I don't blame anybody else if it doesn't work out. I blame myself. And that might be the other part of successful people versus non-successful people is unsuccessful people blame other people.
Yeah.
Successful people blame themselves. When successful people ultimately don't hit a goal, they don't look around for who they can blame. They go inward and they say, it's my fault that we didn't hit this goal. It's my fault that the company didn't grow. It's not anyone else's fault. It's my fault internally that we didn't hit the goal, that we didn't go 10 times. It's my fault that my marriage is struggling. It's my fault that I'm overweight. It's my fault versus the poor person. I mean, poor me, the negative attitude is the one who says, well, it's COVID's fault that I'm out of weight, and it's my wife's fault because she cooks this, and it's my, I'm too busy to be able to do that. And all these other things, it's like we stack these things up where, Jim Rohn once said, and I tell my kids this, by the way, they probably get annoyed by this, but I always say, like, Jim Rohn once said, the highest form of maturity is taking ownership. Whether things have went well or didn't go well. By the way, sometimes you need to take ownership if they've went well, but take ownership if they didn't go well. Take ownership. That's the highest form of human maturity, is taking ownership. You'd be surprised how many 75-year-olds are acting the same way as a 5-year-old because they've never taken ownership of their own lives.
And I think reflecting on that. So you were pointing out, it's a great time for you to start figuring out what you want 22 to look like, 2022. I think in order to determine that, you need to reflect back on, just like what you and I are going to be doing for the next few weeks, is looking at what all Tower Leadership has accomplished. What areas could we improve on? How did we get to these how did we get to this point? That way, 2022, we just 10 times it. So I think, when you're looking at your 22 goals, it's important for you to do basically an internal audit and say, reflect on everything. Why were my team members? Why were my best team members the best team members? What were they doing? How did I make them successful? And how can I duplicate that next year? Or how can I continue that? What did I do for my business? What did I do for my community? If you only grew minuscule, you have to reflect on that and say, all right, what did I do? I don't want to repeat this in 2022. If you grew a ton, how do you duplicate that in 2022? I think the reflection period, because we were talking about just how do we reflect on what our clients were doing, what new clients will be doing. It's important to do that as you set yourself up for this new year.
That was just well said, right? I think so I want to go back where we started. The most successful clients, the most successful people are really good people. What does it mean to be a good person, right? That's a subjective term, good person. I'm saying that these are the people who are humble, hungry, and smart. They are humble. They don't think they have all the answers. The people that struggle, I will tell you in my career, the ones who when I tell them to do something, they say the same flipping thing every time. I'm already doing that. If you say I'm already doing that, please like just smack yourself or something. Okay. And I'm serious. Like they don't say that. Okay. That's the worst thing you can say. I will promise you, the people that are the best of the best are saying they listen, they're open, they're going, okay, obviously I'm not doing it right. It's so funny. So I was talking to Jordan, who's on one of our advisors, and he goes, it's so crazy. Like Eric, like I have one client who I give the same flipping piece of advice to, and they just literally grew their practice $2 million in 12 months. And the next person is stuck in the mud. Same advice, same situation, same, right? And so you go, okay, the difference is the person was humble. They were willing to listen to the advice. They were willing to say, because the best people that I work with, none of them, not one, tell me, I already got that. We already do that. They're open, they listen, they want to continue to grow. They're the best of the best. They're hungry. They want this shit so bad. They're willing to do any of it. They're successful. They're successful in their marriage. They're successful in their life. They're successful in everything they're doing. They are hungry and they're emotionally smart. They treat people well. They understand that to treat people well, right? That it's important because you'll attract other people like that. They're hungry, humble, and smart. Those are the best of the best. The people that want to continue to transform their lives. They're willing to invest in coaching, right? They're willing to invest in, look, I mean, if you got a multi-million-dollar business, okay, dropping a few $1,000s in consulting is a freaking, oh my gosh, it's like it's chicken feed. Okay.
Yeah.
It's chicken feed. And so, what ends up happening is like you have to invest in yourself and invest in your education and invest in your growth and invest in your future and go to the events and attend the seminars and listen to the podcast and do all the things. It's constant. It's every day. I was listening to something as I was getting ready this morning, right? To inspire myself, inspire my day. So we have to constantly be growing. So the people that are doing the best, if you're listening to this podcast, because not everyone listening to this podcast is the most successful. Some of you out there are listening to this and you're struggling and you're like, I wonder what the problem is. It's you. I tell people it's you. You're the problem. This is ultimately everything is going back down to you being the problem. And if you if you work on you, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, I just mean that's how we get better as we work on ourselves. I've got to continue to work on myself. You guys have to continue to work on yourself. We all have to continue to work on yourself. But I will tell you, the very best, the most successful doctors, the ones that are going to have dental organizations, the ones that are going to sell them off for $50 million. You cannot grow an organization, a $50 million organization, if you're an ass, if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't take care of people, if you don't have, if you're not hungry, humble, and smart, because you're not going to take the advice. You're not going to listen to anybody. You're going to think you have all the answers and you're not going to do it. So here's the thing. Like, here's where I'd start with. Am I hungry, humble, smart? Who do I want to impact? How do I want to change my own life in 2022? What will I work on? What will help me grow? How do I grow 10 times where I am today? How do I grow 10 times in my own personal development, my health, my family, my faith, my marriage? How do I do that, right? What am I willing to do in this next 12 months that will transform my life? Because transforming is a process. And if you keep on the path, it's a compound effect. One day you wake up and you're a completely different person. There's always this idea of, can you take somebody who, and I was talking to my operations team this morning. I was like, you have to understand, and I've said it before in this podcast, if you have a $700,000 practice, you, as a business owner, you have failed. Okay. You have failed. I'm going to tell you why. And I'm sorry, it's just the truth. I'm here to speak the truth. The truth is this. Look, you have hygiene patients that come to your office every 6 months. If you retain 70% of them over a 30-year period, you should be doing millions of dollars just in hygiene. Okay. The fact that your practice isn't over $1 million ultimately means that you have failed as a business owner. That's okay. In all ways, we've all failed in some way as a business owner, right? I mean, that's part of business. Is if you win at everything, you'd never learn anything. But the difference between great people and the people that struggle are the great people take the things that they've done wrong. They've taken the mistakes and they learn from them. They grow from them. They don't think they have all the answers. And so we have to go back to say, how do I self-improve? What I want to be careful of is a podcast, and you say, do this, right? Last podcast, we talked about, marketing, and we talked about doing, keep touching people and keep focusing, and all these concepts we talk about and how to grow your dental practice. I think ultimately none of it will work if you don't grow you. And even if you do grow your business, and let's say you're an ass and you treat people like crap, because I guarantee you that when I said you can't treat people like crap and have a $50 million business, there are people listening to this podcast right now who said, yes, you can. This person's growing, they're an ass and they grow 50. Let me tell you what that looks like. You wake up and you've got a bunch of money in the bank and you're all alone and everybody hates you and everyone hates working with you. And when you leave this world, you'll have done nothing with it. And you wasted and spun all your wheels. The truth is that the greatest thing you can do in this world is impact other people's lives. And the more you work to impact other people's lives, the more they'll work to impact yours.
Yeah. And I think I want to just touch on one more before we wrap up is, I think you were saying there's a lot of people that are struggling looking for the answer. I think there's an important point to say, it doesn't matter how big you are either. If you're already a $20 million organization, most of the time, $20 million organizations have coaches, have business developers that are looking at their business and saying, all right, this is where you can improve. This is where you could put money and you could go from there. So I think it's important to notice, it's not just people that are under $1 million or a little bit over $1 million trying to get to multiple locations. We have clients that call us all the time that have several locations and they just need someone that can give them business advice to go from, $10 million to $20 million. And how do I do that in the shortest amount of time? I mean, you look at some of the biggest consulting companies in the world, Deloitte's of the world. What do they work? Who do they work with? They work with Fortune 500 companies. Like I guarantee you, Coca-Cola works with somebody that's looking at their business saying, you need to do this.
Well, of course, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, right?
Yeah.
KPMG, right? These companies, you're right. Every major company pays consultants, period. The best of the best all pay consultants. They all have people from the outside who aren't against the wall looking at their organization. And I was just thinking too, as you were talking, I was like, isn't it funny? Like I was thinking last week, I got a text message from one of our clients. Isn't it funny they listen to this podcast? I mean, we're talking about the most successful clients we work with. Listen to the podcast. Isn't that interesting? That, I'll guarantee you, if I take somebody on and they're struggling because, they've went through 5 consultants and they decide to come on and it's interesting. I say, hey, did you listen to the last podcast episode? They haven't listened to any of them. Isn't that interesting, right? That the most successful doctors we work with listen to the podcast. Isn't that interesting? Like, I mean, the best just keep getting better. They can't stand to not know. They got to have the answers. They got to search for the answers. It's the one nugget, the one thing I said that they ran with that changed and transformed their lives. Guys, oftentimes it's one statement, one thing, one thing that you heard at one point that just completely transformed your life. But if you're not looking, you'll never find it.
I like it. It's perfectly said.
Guys, thanks for listening to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Go work on you. Get ready for 2022. Get pumped up. Get ready.
Like and subscribe. Don't forget, we're going to keep changing up the set. So if you haven't been able to view us yet, maybe that's one of your goals. Start watching the YouTube channel, looking at the podcast, seeing Eric and I in the studio, seeing our cool backdrops. We're going to bring a lot of heat in the coming year. So stay with us.
Hey, if you haven't went online to YouTube and you haven't watched the excitement that we are, you need to
the show,
YouTube, right? The show. So anyhow, look, guys, it's great to have you here. As always, see you next time.